All right, all right. Let me just travel over to GCOM 402, and we'll get going here. So the content, or the focus of this week is subdivision surfaces. Over the last, 7 weeks, we focused all of our attention on creating polygons. And while our attention isn't going to stray from that concept, we're going to change the concept a little bit and toggle a new algorithm that will ultimately give us a much higher quality surface than what we've been generating before. This surface is called a subdivision surface, and we'll talk a little bit about the theory and math behind these surfaces here in a minute. But ideally, what we're going to gain from this entirely new architecture and this entirely new way of approaching 3D modeling are surfaces that are completely devoid of any sort of visible faceted edge, right? You can really see it quite easily on low-resolution geometry, like a cylinder. You can see how it transitions, the sharp angles in the polygons, right? Well, we don't want to see those polygons anymore, right? Subdivision surfaces are going to yield us that result. We're going to have two major goals to accomplish this week. Our homework is going to be a cannon, and specifically this cannon, all right? This cannon and this project is going to allow you to flex your muscles with subdivision surfaces. If you look very closely at the image at the top of the screen there, do you see any polygons? No. You see any hard edges on the barrel of the cannon? Do you see any sort of evidence that this is a computer-generated element created from flat surfaces? No. Because the barrel of our cannon has been transformed into a subdivision surface. Your challenge this week is to take everything that we've learned or that you're going to learn today in class and apply it to this little cannon. We're also going to piggyback on a lot of the concepts that we explored inside the Jeep. If you look at the frame, it's a symmetrical element. The left side is identical to the right side, just like our Jeep. So it's going to give us another opportunity to practice our mirroring tools and to work with symmetrical elements. The area is like there's a little pivot point where the cannon sits in the base. It's very similar to how we crafted the back of the Jeep, the wheel well for the Jeep. So the concepts that we began in the Jeep are going to continue here in the cannon. Every week, the challenge is going to increase and grow and grow and grow. We'll come back to the specifics of how we're going to generate this image here in a minute. But this is the goal, subdivision surfaces that will allow us to create an image, and specifically a model that's devoid of any polygonal faceted edges. To give you guys a little bit more experience in this, I have a lab assignment here that's also kind of fun. You're going to be making a medicine bottle. This is going to allow us, again, to continue working with subdivision surfaces. And we're also going to explore some transparent materials, which I know is one of those elements that you guys have been chomping at the bit to explore. Creating glass and water and certain material attributes like that are really easy to do, and as you can see, we can get some really great high resolution and high quality results with the Modo rendering engine. So there's basically three things that we're going to strive to accomplish this week. Subdivision surfaces, we're going to look at transparent materials, and then I'm also going to show you guys a really neat little trick, a modeling practice, a strategy called radial sweeping, which I think you'll really find kind of neat. It's a technique that's awesome for cylindrical objects like our little medicine bottle here, and we'll get to that towards the end of class. All three of these ideas, in tandem with the live stream, as you can clearly see I'm producing tonight, are encapsulated in 3 videos. So if you want a small little refresher, a more distilled, focused conversation about each one of these topics, I've given those to you guys at the top of the Week 8 module. Okay. One note, though, on the radial sweep thing, there's no audio. There's not going to be having any narration. You'll see me going through the process of establishing the radial sweep, but there's no audio. Every semester I get folks saying, hey, your audio is broken. It's like, well, it's not broken. There just isn't any, right? So please keep that in mind. You can very clearly see the steps that I'm performing, and it's going to mirror directly what I talk about in class today. Questions? Everyone good?
Is there a reason there's no audio?
No. There just isn't any. No, you don't put music over stuff like this. We're not making music videos here. I'm not here to entertain. You're here to learn. Huh? No, even worse. Even worse. Okay. let's jump into it. We have a lot of concepts that we got to explore tonight, so let's just kind of jump in and start exploring the art of subdivision surfaces.
You know, your narration of these videos is way more interesting than the Lexology and British guys. Have you ever listened to
I have. Thank you.
I fall asleep listening to this.
Thank you. I try to keep it lively and entertaining. Yeah, it's
Lexology, they should hire you.
yeah. I agree. I agree, Lexology people. No. If the folks from Lexology are listening, you should hire me. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Okay, so it's a cool little model. I didn't make this, by the way, so I can't take credit to this model. It's a very cool model. This is actually one of the original models that the guys down at Lexology used to promote Moto. It goes all the way back, I think, to version 1, maybe even version 2. The old man model has been around for a while, and it's a perfect illustration of subdivision surfaces. If you go out and go see any movie, or if you look at any you look at any television shows, do you see in our current modern rendering and modeling architecture any polygons anymore? No, you sure don't. Everyone in our industry has adopted a new chunk of modeling technology called subdivision surfaces, and here are what they look like, okay? A subdivision surface starts from a traditional polygonal object, identical to what we've been working with so far. And then we hit a magic key in our keyboard, and we apply an algorithm to that surface, and it smooths it all out. And we create the illusion of something that's of much higher quality and of much higher polygonal resolution than is actually there, and we create perfect surfaces, surfaces that are devoid of any polygonal faceted edges. We don't want to see polygons anymore. However, we don't want to work inside of an environment that's got like 80 million polygons on it, right? Because my mantra, and I should make a gigantic poster of this, is mo polys, mo problems, okay? We want to make all of our objects with as few polygons as we can. It's easier to edit, it's easier to understand the shape, and we can transform it into something that's of much higher quality with sub-Ds. Yes, sir?
Is this somewhere similar to the teapot where we can find it?
It is, but we don't need to find it for the moment, okay? This new technology has been around, well, actually, I shouldn't say it's new technology. This technology has been around since the mid-'80s. We've been doing this for a long, long time, but it's only maybe within the last 10 years or so that subdivision surfaces has caught on. Sub-Ds are everywhere now. At the core, they're polygons, which every rendering engine can understand. There are other special surfaces out there, one of which is called a NURBS surface. NURBS stands for, and I'm the geek moment, non-uniform rational B-splines. I'm sorry, NURBS surfaces, okay? It's a special type of surface, but that's not really supported by a lot of rendering engines. Subdivision surfaces, they're polygons that are being smoothed by the computer, supported by everyone. Every character that you see is a subdivision surface. Every single object that you see in the movies is either going to be a subdivision surface or a polygonal surface of much higher resolution. Yeah?
If it's simple as a button press, why don't video games adopt that more? And that's when they're not in cutscenes pre-rendered.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. For subdivisions, or the conversation of subdivision surface is a line in the sand between the television and feature film world and the game world. We have a luxury in the television and feature film world of waiting a certain amount of time for a render to happen, right? If I hit the F9 button and render a frame, it could take 2 or 3 seconds to render one frame, right? In the game world, we don't have that luxury, right? You basically have 1/24th or 1/30th of a second to render the exact same frame. The type of technology and the algorithm that's being applied to this object doesn't support that real-time rendering environment at the moment. If I had a crystal ball, and I don't, I'd probably predict that in the next 5 to 7 years, we'll start to see subdivision surfaces making their way into the game world. I don't think it's going to be the current console generation, but whatever comes after the Xbox One, dare I say the Xbox 2? Which is a horrible, whatever Microsoft is doing with their naming conventions is just like, what? So you had the Xbox, Xbox 360, now you have the Xbox One. Anyways, okay, yeah. Right, yeah. And then at least the Sony guys are making it consistent. So the next generation of consoles is probably going to support this, as well as the next generation of the PC kind of rendering platforms for desktop machines. Okay, so we're not quite there yet. So this is definitely something that's limited to the television and the feature film world. Okay. Going back to what it does, though, we start with the polygonal cage, and then we hit a button on our keyboard that toggles and applies the algorithm to our mesh. Now, seemingly this is magic, but there's actually some hardcore math that drives this entire magical event from happening. I'm not going to bore you with the details, but the grandfathers of our computer graphics industry created these algorithms, and they're still alive and kicking today. Okay? In every sense, the granddaddy of this entire industry is a guy named Ed Catmull. Anyone know who Ed Catmull is? I'm not surprised. He's the Pixar guy. You got it. He's one of the co-founders of Pixar, right? He wrote the algorithm that allows for subdivision smoothing to happen across all of our meshes. Okay. Now, if we look at the original raw polygonal shape, it's not going to look exactly the way our little object looks now. This is the original polygonal form. These are the raw polygons. The raw polygons that you guys have been studying and working with over the last couple of weeks. That magical button takes these raw polygons and it applies the algorithm, and of course we get something that's of much higher quality and resolution. Okay? It's pretty neat. Okay? At the back end, what's really truly happening here is that the computer and why it's called subdivision surfacing, is that the computer is taking a polygon like this. Okay, I pretend this is a surface. Of course, the corners would be vertices here. And then when we hit our magical toggle button, it transforms that one polygon into 4. Subdivides it. Okay. Then if we increase our subdivision rate, we transform that 4 polygonal mesh or 4 polygon surface into a 16 polygon surface. So we're increasing logarithmically, or actually, exponentially, the number of polygons that are infused on our model when we hit that little button. Now this is a really great thing for us, because now we can very easily crank up the number of polygons in our scene and crank down the number of polygons that are seen whenever we want. At the raw form, though, it's still pretty low resolution. We're not physically going in and adding 8 million polygons. The rendering engine is doing this for us, and it's pretty amazing. Okay? It's seemingly magical, but it's not. There's an algorithm and a workflow that goes into production here that allows us to control how our subdivision surfaces are being employed within our scene. Let me show you another example. Goodbye, old man. Hello, rhinoceros. Okay, pretty cool rhino. Pretty awesome, right? Do you see any polygonal edges? Any facets? No. Thanks to the SubD algorithm, all of those polygons have been smoothed out, and we're able to place hard surfaces and very steep transition lines where we want. And there's the original form. No. We always want to ensure that the object that we crafted still works as a polygonal shape. Some tweaks are going to be made once we hit the subdivision button, and once we toggle it and we see it all smoothed out. Of course, you're going to go back in and tweak it to make it look perfect. But your model should always still work and still describe your object unsubdivided. We only want to rely upon the subdivision surface engine to smooth everything out and remove the visible apparent nature of each one of those polygons. This is a controllable element. It seems magical, right? But there are elements that we add into our mesh to ensure that we get the result and the illusion that we're after. Pretty cool, huh? I'm a subdivision surface modeler. This is my bag. This is all that I do now. Almost 100% of the things that I do professionally ends up as a subdivision surface, okay? I know it seems pretty cool on organic shapes, but these are elements that can absolutely be employed for hard surface objects as well. Let me show you a great example of this. Gotta remember which folder it is in here. No. These are part of the content that comes with Luxology, or with Modo, excuse me. That's a character. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Let's do automotive, and let's do little toy car. Okay. So if you look very carefully here, what we're working with on this little toy car is a number of subdivision surfaces. Okay. Do you see any polygons? No, not really. Is this a character? No, it's a hard surface object that's employing this exact same technique and this algorithm to round out all the edges and to helps us create a more perfect shape. Okay, this is the brass ring that we're trying to grab. This is the gold standard. This is the goal for what we're striving to accomplish, both on the organic side and, of course, on the hard surface side as well. Subdivision surfaces can and should be used in both areas. We've been focusing our attention in the last couple of weeks, so actually since the beginning of the class, on hard surface objects. In about 4 weeks, we're going to transition and start talking about soft surface objects and start exploring how we create characters and how we can use the sub-D engine to give us the results that we're after. There's no reason anymore to see polygons. The sub-D workflow has been refined and it's become way more robust in the last 4 or 5 versions of Modo that we can't not model it with anymore. Pretty neat, huh? Pretty great little model. All right. Say again? Yeah, there's some stuff that happened. Yeah. No, use it for hard surfaces. Yeah, absolutely use it for hard surfaces. Sometimes, in certain areas, the results are subtle. Look at the railing here. This area right here. Boom, perfect circular now, right? Yeah, I mean, you want to use this as much as you can.
So you just click a button and it does it?
Yep. It's the tab key. The tab key is a toggle. It's going to activate and deactivate the application of that algorithm into your scene.
You have to select the polygons to do it, or you just do the whole thing?
It does. It does, like everything in Modo, everything begins and ends with the selection, right? We know that workflow. If something's selected, the tool is only going to affect the selected components. If nothing's selected, as it is here, then everything is going to be edited. However, if I went in, and as an example, let me just grab the roll cage here, hit the tab key, now you can see that I'm only influencing the application of the algorithm on the selected components.
Settings you can screw with, or?
Yeah, absolutely. There's settings for everything, of course. Of
How do
course.
you get access to those settings?
We're not even there yet.
All right.
You don't even know how it works and you want to monkey with it. Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. It's pretty neat. All right, what I'd like you to do is try to follow along as much as you can. I think this next bit is best served if you all basically kind of follow me. And I'm going to create some very, very simple shapes.
Follow you on screen or on a computer?
On your screen. Yeah, follow along. The best way to do this is to get your hands dirty, okay? And let's start our day by exploring some cylindrical shapes, okay? Cylinders are probably the easiest way to really understand the workflow, the rules of how we work with subdivision surfaces, okay? Before we get going, though, I want to just spend a moment talking about the number of sides that we're going to need when creating cylinders. Believe it or not, this is actually kind of a big deal for us, okay? I'm going to go up to my basic tool tab, fire off the cylinder tool, and then return to its properties. And I want to make an 8-sided cylinder.
I'm assuming there's a bare minimum of what how many polygons you can add.
Not so much a bare minimum. Let's look through my scene from the front. So there's an 8-sided cylinder. I'm going to create a new one, another one that's got 10 sides. And then I'm going to create a third one. I'm going to create a third one that's got 12. But we're going to take a step back for a minute and look at each one of these circles. Okay? Because there's some important ideas in here that's going to have a direct influence on how we work or how we're able to craft compliant subdivision surfaces. If you look at all three of the circles that I've made, and please keep in mind, I've just created two-dimensional circles. They're not extruded three-dimensional cylinders. If you look at the three circles that I've crafted, there are some common elements between a couple of them, okay? But one is definitely much different than the other two. Can anyone spot the one that looks very vastly different? Look at patterns here. Look at patterns, okay? And there's a purpose and a reason. Yes, good. The 10-sided cylinder is the one in the middle. And if we compare number 1 and number 3, so the cylinder that's got, or excuse me, the circle that's got 8, the 8 and the 12 have what's called cardinal poles. These cardinal poles, kind of representing north, south, east, and west, if you will, are what we need to have to ensure that we have the most flexibility in our modeling pipeline.
So we have to have multiples of 4, right?
Multiples of 4, you got it. Or a factor of 4, right? Because what we always want to ensure that we have the possibility of is to infuse a center line. Okay? We want to have a center line. Now, number 10 there gives us an opportunity to make a center line, but only along which axis? Pop quiz. X, the left or right, right? The compass down here is giving us a really good indication as to the axis that those, basically the west and east cardinal poles generate for us. Okay? Okay? What we don't get in a 10-sided cylinder is that north and south cardinal pole. We can never, ever, ever truly make an object that has a center line going across the x-axis on a 10-sided cylinder. This is the big problem for me as a modeler. I'm restricting the options that are available to me 8 or 9 steps ahead. Good 3D modelers are like good chess players. The structures that we create now are going to determine what we're able to create at the end of the day. Okay? And certainly, don't create a cylinder that's got an odd number of sides. So here's an 11-sided guy. Look at the 11. Oh my gosh, that's just a nightmare. An absolute nightmare. Okay? Never odd. Never odd. If you're going to make a mistake, at least make it with an even-sided cylinder. 8, 12, and 16, those are the ones you want to hang out with for the majority of your time in 3D modeling. Personally, I never go above 16 these days. It's very rare that I go above a 16-sided cylinder.
And the reason that 8, 12, and 16 are recommended is because they have the sides that go from top to bottom and from left to right.
You got it. They're always going to give you those cardinal poles. All of these guys. There's always going to be a north, south, east, west vertice, if you will, inside the cylindrical shape. I mean, look at the 11-sided one. I wouldn't even know what to do. If someone gave me an 11-sided cylinder, I'd be like, I'm going to start over. It'd be faster for me to start over than it would be to work with this thing. I mean, I have like 0 options here. I guess I could go like that way. Does that cut it in half? Nope, not really. Yeah, that's just a nightmare. Okay. I want to spend some time just working with the 8-sided cylinder or the 8-sided circle, only because it's got fewer and it'll be easier to have a conversation about the system that we need to employ to better work with subdivision surfaces. Now, if you look real carefully here, I have my little polygon selected, and if I was to hit the tab key, I can instantly apply the subdivision surface algorithm to the selected component. Okay? Yeah. And now, what do we have? We have a circle. We have a perfect circle. And this is always the goal for us. Okay? Or the goal, excuse me, is to smooth out the shape and create an illusion of something that's of much higher quality. Now, there is no magic in this. Okay? What the computer is doing is taking that 8-sided cylinder and it's adding polygons that we don't see, nor do we want to see, or be able to control on the interior of that shape. Okay? This is a single polygon. Technically, it's an n-gon, right? It's an n-gon. What's an n-gon? Help them out. More than 4 vertices. You got it. It's a surface that has more than 4 verts associated with it, right? This is a surface with more than 4 verts. Anyone want to take a guess how many verts it has? 8. Yeah. Okay. However, if I slice this using the edge slice commands, I can very easily transform this into 4 quad polygons. Now, if we count the verts, get 1, 2, 3, 4 to define that polygon. That one's got the same. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now we're in a compliant shape. And when we hit the tab key, it subdivides it logarithmically. Or not logarithmically. I don't know why I keep saying logarithmically. Exponentially. And we're getting the illusion of something that's of much higher quality. Of course, we can control this, and at times we want to control this. As we get more experience working with sub-Ds, I'll kind of drop that bombshell on you guys as to when and where and how we want to increase and decrease our subdivision rate. But for today, we're going to keep it pretty basic.
So what's the goal? Is there a goal to model the fewest polygon?
No, and I think yeah, the goal is to not use the fewest number of polygons available to us, okay? The goal is always to describe the shape with the appropriate amount of polygons. But we want to use the subdivision surface to remove any sort of illusion or any sort of apparent faceted edge from the render.
So if you made that a 4th vertex polygon, would that still?
It would. It wouldn't look perfectly circular, but it would be, so you're basically saying a square.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it would, the rule would still apply. And just for giggles here. Okay. It's not as smooth as the other one, but we're closer. We're closer to where we want to be. Okay? Okay. All right. Let's get this into 3D, because working with 2-dimensional shapes is really fine, but let's make this into a 3-dimensional shape. And I think I'm simply just going to extrude this element along the z-axis and transform it into a little cylinder like that. And you know what? Just to make it easier for me, I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees and just stand this guy up. There we go. All right. We're going to work with 2 separate cylinders here to compare and contrast how this algorithm is working and how it's going to influence the objects in our scene. So let's see. I want to copy and paste a simple duplication of my cylinder. Edit, copy, edit, paste, fire off the move tool, and I'll translate it across the x-axis. Okay. So this is going to be kind of our playground, these 2 cylinders for the next 5 or so minutes. To, I think, amplify and to illustrate as clearly as I can the results of the algorithm on our mesh it, on one of my cylinders, for me, this left one, I'm going to delete the top and the bottom. Just delete them. And in every sense, I have an opening now on one of my cylinders. One of them's capped, one of them's not. All right. If you're playing along and you're at this point where you've deleted the top and the bottom of one of those cylinders, hit the tab key. This is what I crafted. Interesting result. Probably not initially one that you expected, okay? The surface on the left represents the goal in every state. No faceted edges. Looks perfect, right? It's a perfect cylindrical shape. Aha! At the core of this object still resides a cylinder that was crafted with 8 sides. And then when subdivided, it now has the illusion of something that maybe has like 128 sides, something of much higher quality. Huh? So this is what I had on my screen. Just this 2 simple cylinders. The cylinder on the left does not have a top and a bottom. And the cylinder on the right has that top and the bottom. Okay, so back to the subdivided state. So this is the goal, okay, over here. And keep in mind, this one doesn't have those top and bottom polygons, and you can see the application of the algorithm across the mesh. This one, however, what? Funky, huh? Not exactly what we want. Here's my kind of method for trying to simplify is the wrong word, but just kind of personify precisely what's happening with the algorithm across our mesh. Imagine, if you will, in the interior, in the dead center of each one of these cylinders, there's a small, tiny, infinitesimally small black hole. You guys know black holes? They suck things down into them, into another dimension, right? Where there's like another version of me, but he has like long hair, right? I would love to meet the alternate dimension version of Pat.
Imagine if he's Amish.
Big beard, that'd be great. I can handle that. Yeah, I love it. All right. Anyway, so there's a small miniature black hole on the interior of our mesh, and it's sucking. It's trying to pull all of those polygons to the inside, right? It's trying to, tension is being applied across the entire surface, and the polygons are bending and deforming as if that little black hole is, is forcing them to go into the center. That's, in my mind, that's what's happening, okay? Well, we want to be able to control the influence of this black hole across our mesh. We don't want it to pull all of our polygons. At the end of the day, what I want to craft and what I want to have is a cylinder on the right whose top and bottom polygons aren't deforming and collapsing into that kind of umbrella-like shape at the top and bottoms of my cylinder. Subdivision surfaces are controllable. If you look at the raw polygons, we only have a few of them. We only have, on the cylinder on the right, we only have 10 polygons on this mesh, okay? 8 going around the circumference of my cylinder, and then a top, and then a bottom. FYI, I'm done with this guy. I'm done with you. Delete. So let's talk about how we can wrangle this algorithm and control it to get the result that we want. It's really easy, but there's a basic rule that we need to follow. If we want to shore up the edges and define a plane change, okay? And a plane change would be a sudden shift in angle of the polygons. So we have the top ones here, and then we have a sudden shift in the angle of the polygons that are next to it. That's a plane change, okay? If we want to add tension at the location of that plane change and shore up the edges, in essence, create a 90-degree transition, we have to add more edge segments into the mix, okay? We control the application of this algorithm by edge segments. The more edge segments that we have, the algorithm is going to behave differently based on the edge segments that are on our mesh, okay? Let's focus our attention on the top. Okay, so as is, if I hit the tab key, this is what we get. The shape completely collapses and is being sucked into the center of that black hole on the interior of my little cylinder. I want to be able to add a little bit of tension and kind of deactivate, if you will, the influence of the algorithm at the location of that sudden plane change at the top. Okay. In order to do this, we need to add 2 additional edge loops into our model. We need to have 3 edge loops, 3, count them 3, to shore up the edges. The first one is going to be the original, the one that's just chilling right there at the top of the polygon, or the top of the cylinder. I'm in edge mode now. If I double click, that's the original. So there's one of the 3. Now, we need to use our polygonal editing tools to create 2 additional edge segments that's going to influence the application of that algorithm. The location of each one of these new edge segments is important. We need to have the original sandwiched by 2 additional edge segments. So we basically need to have a new edge segment above the original and a new edge segment below the original. We're creating an ice cream sandwich of edges, okay? And I love ice cream sandwiches. You guys like it? I love them. I could eat like an entire box of Neapolitan ice cream sandwiches by myself.
Don't tell me these things.
That's a good idea. Okay, so how are we going to do this?
Next week, just bring ice cream sandwiches for everybody.
I love it, yeah. No.
3 A's, yeah.
Free A's. I'm not above bribery. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I'm above bribery. You can't do it. No. I'm joking.
Bring an icebox next Wednesday.
Yeah. Okay, so how are we going to add additional edge segments into the mix? They have to be edge loops. They have to go all the way around the circumference of our cylinder, right? Do you guys remember what a loop is? They come in 2 different flavors, right? Edges and polygonal loops. Define for me what a loop is.
Like a ring. It goes around one and connects back to itself.
There it is. Great. So it's a row of polygons or edges that wrap all the way around the model and connect back onto itself. Okay? For example, if I look at this polygon, here's the row, and each one of these are welded to each other, and they wrap all the way around the model, boop, boop, and connects back onto the original one, which is this guy. We have polygonal loops, as I've just described, and we also have edge loops, and this one's at the top. Okay? We need to infuse 2 new edge loops into our model. So, with that said, how can we do this? Slicing it, yeah, absolutely. The slicing tools that we've been looking at for the past couple of weeks are coming home to roost with subdivision surfaces, okay? And if we wanted to add 2 new edge loops, what slicing tool would be a natural one to apply? Loop slice, you got it. Let's start off. I'm going to select 2 or more polygons on the polygonal loop that I wish to slice. You can find the loop slice tool under Mesh Edit, and it's right there. Keyboard shortcut Alt-C. Now, before we go any further, let's look at the options. My mode is set to free, which allows me to define where I want that new edge loop to go. And I'm only adding 1 additional edge loop into the mix as defined by the count value right there. All right. Let's left-click to apply the edge loop. There it is. And then if I drag either on the yellow triangle or just anywhere in my viewport, I can define where I want that new edge loop to go. And I'm just going to kind of nest it right up there at the top. Now, be careful. Actually, you can't go all the way up to the tippy top. Have it close. Okay, so your mode is in probably uniform or in symmetry. I'm in free. Yeah. I'm in free. All right, let's drop the tool. I'm happy with that. And if we look at what we've created, we now have 2 of the 3 edge loops created. The original is still in its current location, and I've added a new one below using the loop slice tool. As I mentioned a moment ago, I need to have a grand total of 3, right? The original plus 2. Close. I think if you look at my screen, that's a good approximation of where we need to be. Just close. Just close. Okay? Now, how in the world are we going to add that 3rd one? Bevel. Bevel's our guy, right? We love the bevel tool. In this case, we're going to use the polygonal bevel tool. So I'll start off with a polygonal selection, like that. Fire off the bevel tool, keyboard shortcut B, and then I'll just give it an inset. And you can see that it shrinks that top polygon and adds a new row of polygons in its place. One of the things I like to do to get a very predictable application of the algorithm is try to make the width of this polygon loop the same as the height of this polygon loop. A little bit of uniformity goes a long way. That's visually as close as you can make it. Don't let it give you heartaches, though, because it's not critical that they be the same. I'm just incredibly OCD. I really am, and it needs to be like really exact. You will see my OCD-ness come to light very, very quickly, as everything needs to be like straight lines and perfect. And it's just, I'm the right person to be a 3D modeler, but at the same time, I'm probably the wrong type of person to be a 3D modeler, because it has to be perfect. It has to be perfect. If it's not perfect, I'm going to go crazy. Okay. We just did an inset. We just shrank that top polygon to add a new row, a new edge loop around the top. Okay, mission accomplished. We have our 3. Let's hit the tab key and see what we get. Aha! Look at that. It's no longer collapsing in on itself. If we compare the top of our model, where we've added those 2 new edge loops, to the bottom, that's what it looks like without those edges in there. Okay? The shape completely deforms and collapses in on itself in comparison to what we're seeing up here at the top. Pretty cool, huh? Yeah. All right, let's do the exact same thing one more time down here at the bottom. Okay? Now, if I look at this from the front, we don't necessarily have to use loop slice, right? Loop slice is a great tool. It's fantastic. It's quick. It gives us a high degree of control and accuracy. Could we also just use our straight-up slice tool? Yes, absolutely. So don't forget about slice. I'm going to fire off the slice tool. Hold down the control key and then left-click and drag. And drag out a new slice, and I'm going to put it somewhere right around in there. And what we have gained is the exact same structure, if you will, as we created with the loop slice. The bottom... We need a third one, right? We have 2. 2 of 3 is done. There's the original. We've added 1 below. Now where do we got to add that third one? Yeah. Or, excuse me. I added 1 above. Now I got to add 1 below. And the polygonal bevel tool is our jam. And with that said, we zoom out a little bit, hit the tab key. Yahtzee. We can control the influence of the algorithm across our mesh with additional edge segments. Wherever we want a hard corner or wherever we want to generate tension within inside of our mesh to create the illusion of a wrinkle, a fold, a seam, or even a sharp transition between planes, we need to have edges to define that transition. We've got to have 3 of them. Pretty cool, huh? Very cool. Questions so far? Let's take a look at this exact same concept, but with a square. The cylindrical elements are great. We like to have cylindrical elements, but squares are extraordinarily useful as well. And you'll see this in your canon this week. So I'm just going to make a rectangle with my cube tool. It could be whatever shape you want. I'm using the cube tool. And there it is. And of course, if I was to select it at the tab key, you can see that that small miniature black hole on the interior of my shape is pulling every single one of my polygons and is bending them towards the center. No likey, this is not what I want. I want to create the illusion of small little rounded edges across my mesh, so we need to go in and add some geometry. Now for something like a cube, our challenge is a little bit larger because we no longer have to work with just 1 loop and 1 plane change. We have to deal with 3 separate plane changes on 1 master shape. Okay? So let's focus our attention on establishing the plane change between those two polygons on the top one and that one. Here's the original edge. What do I need to do on the original? We need. Oh, let's just talk globally without even thinking about a tool. What's the goal? We got to have 3, right? We have to have an edge loop above and an edge loop below the original. Now that we understand the goal, what tools can we use to get that result? Bevel and slice. In this case, probably loop slice is our guy. Now, I like loop slice. Let's just fire it off. Because loop slice yields us an opportunity to do some really neat things. We can kind of increase our workflow a little bit here by changing our slicing mode from free to symmetry. If I increase the count to 2, I can slice both sides of my model at the exact same time, right? Saves me some work. Let's just do that real fast. Change the mode from free to symmetry. I'll do a count of 2. And now when I left click and drag, I can add those 2 in. Awesome. Aha, great. Since they're loops, they go all the way around the model and connect back onto themselves. Let's hit the tab key. Okay, we're getting there. Not quite finished yet, but we're on our way. We sliced our mesh going this way, but we still don't have the edges we need to complete the job. Don't necessarily need to do bevel. Let's just keep on using loop slice, but we'll slice a different loop. We sliced going this way and gained that edge loop and that edge loop. What would happen if we sliced going that way? Let's see what we get. We'll run loop slice once again. Aha, good. And now, if you look at this plane change, we're very readily approaching the final result. Here's the original. Here's one below. Now we got to focus on getting one above. So which direction am I slicing now? We did this way, and then we wrapped around that way. What's the last direction within the loop of polygons on our cube that we need to slice? Top to bottom, you got it. So this way, you got it. Slice it again. Using the exact same slicing settings. There we go. And now we have what we're after. Here's the original. We have one above and one below. Here's the original, one above, one below. All the way around our model on every single corner and on every single significant plane change, we have the proper structure. Let's hit tab and see what we get. Ah, wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. Let's start at the very beginning. Okay. So if you look at our cube, it basically has 3 loops that we need to manage and slice within. We have a loop going that way, because that polygon is connected to that polygon. But that polygon is also connected to that polygon, right? So an additional loop, the second loop. And the third one would be this polygon is connected to that polygon. They share an edge, okay? So 3 loops that we have to slice. I'll select this top one, run loop slice, a countitude, a mode of symmetry. I'll place those new edge loops right there at the corners. There's one. Let's go this way now. Same thing. There we go. Hit the tab key. We're getting there. Still looks a little funky. And lastly, got to go the opposite direction. Going that way. Mission accomplished. Great. I just changed the diffuse color value of the base material. That's all I did. To that color. I just picked a color I liked. There's no magic to it. I just picked a cool red. That's all. Now, the reason we're doing this is really apparent once we start rendering. Okay, and here, let me do this to kind of give you a point of comparison. I want to duplicate my little cube here. Mm-hmm. That's correct. Nope, we sandwiched them. At the end of looping, or the end of slicing all 3 loops on a cube, the originals are sandwiched. Yep.
So, like, you know, if this was the original here, and we created 3, it wouldn't be the original in the middle anymore. It would be just a copy, right?
Okay, we're I think approaching this a little bit incorrectly. And you've done what we wanted to do on the loop that's going this way. You can see the slice. Orbit around some so I can see the other way. Yeah. Okay. Now I think you've looped. Yeah. Can you go up some so I can see that top corner? Yeah, you're okay. I mean, here's the original. There's the one above. You looped one too many times, or you sliced one too many times on here.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, let's see. Can you? You're good. Hit the tab key. Oops. Yeah, you're good.
Oh.
Mission accomplished.
It doesn't have to be the original sandwich?
You did it incorrectly by looping it. You sliced it one too many times.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's
We got the result that we're after. Is it the best technique? No, because we have more polygons than we need. And those additional loop slices could potentially, in a more complex model, negatively impact our scene. Okay, let's just chat about one of the things that we benefit from when using subdivision surfaces. Really, all this fuss and fuss on hard surface objects is to create small little radiuses around all of our edges, okay? One of the hallmarks of computer-generated images is the absence, or a model that does not include, a specular highlight. If you go back in time a couple weeks, we spent a lot of time talking about how light interacts with our surfaces. And during that conversation, I mentioned that the specular highlight, in every sense, is probably the most important element for us to include in our objects. From what you can see on my screen here, what is the specular highlight? Can you be a little bit more specific? I heard the white line on the leading edge of the cube, right? What is the specular highlight? Does anyone remember what technically it's supposed to be? Yeah, you're in the ballpark. It's a reflection of the direct light source in our scene, right? In that area, where the light ray is bouncing back at this, towards the light, at the opposite angle of the light ray hitting it, right? If you look at both of these objects, the one on the left, well, I'll be the first one to say that neither of these look really great. They don't look photoreal. But the one on the right definitely looks more computer-generated than the one on the left, right? That specular highlight adds a tremendous amount of information to the user that reminds us of the dimensionality of this object, okay? The one on the right, that doesn't have any rounded edges thanks to the subdivision surfaces, looks fake, looks completely 100% false and computer-generated. And the one on the left that uses sub-Ds and creates that small little corner, that small little radius along the edges, looks a little bit more real. That's what we're after. Or one of the things that we benefit with subdivision surfaces in hard surface projects. Okay. Let's apply this. Let's apply this to a real-world concept. Okay. We've discussed the theory for a bit. We know kind of the ideas and the machinery. Now let's apply it to a real-world project and create something that would truly benefit from subdivision surfaces. Okay. We're going to create the kind of classic Martini glass. Non-alcoholic, of course. And if you're following along, well, I would encourage you to follow along. All right, now I'm going to model this at the origin of the scene. This gives us an opportunity to. Yeah, we're all done with the cylinders and squares, so we're just a little practice for us. And I'm going to start off by establishing that my base material is still red. I certainly don't want that. There we go. All right, and I'll center this bad boy. Huh? 8-sided. I'm going to start with an 8-sider. Okay? And I'm going to, like our coffee cup and like a number of other assignments that we've worked on, I'm simply going to grow this one 8-sided circle into a Martini glass. What tool allows me to do this? Bevel. A good old-fashioned bevel tool. Love me some bevel. This is an 8. You can do it with an 8, 12, or 16. Either of those three will get you a fantastic, fantastic result. Let's just fire off the bevel tool. And I'm initially going to just flush out a shape. Whenever I'm modeling anything for the first time, my first goal is just to define the overall form of this object in all 3 dimensions. I'm not looking at details. I'm just trying to understand the totality of this object. I understand firsthand that I'm going to have to go back in during a new round of editing and refine the profiles and refine the shape to get something that I'm after. So I'm in pure exploration mode right now, just trying to figure out what in the world this thing looks like. And that's going to be the base of my glass. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and click away from the tool handles to reapply the tool and then inset this thing in. That's going to be the stem. Shift click again, start bringing up the stem of the glass. And I'm just in full-blown like proportion mode now. I'm just looking at proportions, not details. Do another shift click so I can start bringing out what will eventually be the bowl. There we go. Now I'm pretty happy with that. That's looking good. I'll shift click again. Do a tiny little inset to create what I would describe as the thickness of my glass. Then I'll shift click again and bring down the bowl with both the shift and an inset to ensure, and I got to ensure that I'm not popping that bottom polygon out. And now I've created the bottom of my glass. And I'm happy with that. Okay. One of the things that you need to ensure that you're doing when you're working with shift click is to move your cursor away from the tool handles. If you're shift clicking on the tool handle, not going to work. Yeah, just do a bevel. Select that polygon there. Gotta select it first. Yep. Just do a bevel. Clicky click. There you go. It's a red handle. Red handle first. There you go. Shrink that polygon down until you get the thickness of your guy. Now, and then hold down the shift key. Let go of your mouse. Oops. Yeah, let go of your mouse. Now move your cursor away from your tool handles. Yep. Hold down the shift key. Now, before you click, move your cursor away from your tool handle. There you go. Now, did you click? Yeah. Now pull up on the blue handle. There you go. Keep going, just like the coffee cup. This is identical to the coffee cup in every single sense. Crab, did you get your bevel thing to work?
do bevel. I just press B and press it, but if it was any other tool, it would never do it.
Okay, show me what you were doing, because that shift click idea is something we want to have mastery on.
Bevel that, and then drop it, and then I press shift, and I click.
No, 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 no. Okay, okay, you drop the tool. We don't want to drop the tool.
Do not drop it.
Do not drop the tool. Yeah, that's the whole purpose of the shift click, is so we don't have to drop the tool.
Okay, say I just beveled it. Okay. Let me bevel it again.
Okay, now hold down shift. Click. Now yep, there you go. You're welcome. Nathan, what's up? Did you get your question answered? Great. Yeah, that shift click kind of procedure takes a little bit of practice, but commit to it, because once we start really working on large objects, that's going to be the backbone for basically everything that we're going to do. Ooh, that's fun, Andy. Yeah, that's called a Z clip, where we got two polygons sharing the exact same spot. The computer doesn't know which one to render.
Yeah, I selected from the bottom using bottom perspective.
Why don't you just grab that bottom polygon?
It wasn't there.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Go under.
Now
Yeah, why don't you just grab it and move it down?
and down.
Yeah.
Move tool. A little loopy today.
There we go. Oh, you have larger issues at hand. I would suggest doing a mesh cleanup.
I did.
As always, Miss Farmer. The studious one. Interesting.
Can I think it's like something to do that, like edges? And sometimes like it'll grab them, but like right now it won't grab my edges.
Are you doing the right mouse button or the middle mouse button?
There's no mouse.
The what?
It's a right.
Right.
Yeah.
With the right mouse button, it's only going to select the component that's facing you. You're trying to select an edge.
Okay.
Yeah, you want the middle mouse button.
Okay, because there's it's like the scroller
Uh-huh.
button.
That's
Okay.
the one.
Okay.
Yeah. Group polygons is turned off. That's why you're getting that error. You want to go back in time a little bit more. I see some dark edges on your mesh. Keep going. Okay, that's a good place to start. Now, Nathan, you're making a critical error in that you don't have that polygon selected. Drop your tool. There you go. There you go. Yeah.
Make the shape more diagonal.
Yeah. I would hit undo a couple stages. What you have here is going to be incredibly difficult to edit. I like the idea that you've crafted here, but when you're bringing up the stem, you shift click, and then you're going to do the blue handle and the red handle simultaneously. Or hit undo, whatever gets you back and the easiest way to get you back. Now, as I walk around the room here, I can see that a number of you guys are not including any sort of dimension that establishes the width of the glass. This is important, right? We always want to have a flat surface in there before we go any further, okay? What we don't want to do, okay, and this is bad modeling, this is bad form, and it's going to give you a lot of problems going forward. What we don't want to do is this. Notice how I'm not going to do that inset to create that flat row first. What we don't want to do is this, okay? Okay, this is bad modeling, okay? We never have those razor sharp edges. We need to define the thickness of the glass with a new row of polygons. I like that. Good job. Absolutely. All right, let's keep going. Now, I've started to flesh out what I'm pretty happy with for my overall form. This is good. I'm liking this, but there's some edits. There's some tweaks in here that I can do quickly to give me a higher quality result, because this really doesn't look like the classic Martini glass yet. Okay, there's some elements in here that we can and should change to suspend disbelief and to make this look a little bit more real. Specifically, the base is driving me crazy, man. It's driving me absolutely crazy. If you look at the base of my Martini glass, it's perfectly flat. Perfectly flat. That doesn't look real, okay? If you look at glasses, and especially if you start to study industrial design, there's actually very few perfectly flat surfaces. There's curvatures and there's angles on almost everything. Like the bottom of a soda can. There's only a little ring, there's only a little bit of the bottom of the soda can that's perfectly flat to make it sit on a tabletop. The rest is curved underneath, right? It's these little details that we can quickly add that will make the end result of our model a lot stronger. Luckily, we don't have to add polygons. We just can edit the ones that are there. I want to select that bottom ring. I'm just going to move it up. Believe it or not, a small plane change like that, just moving it up a fraction of an inch, creates a little bit of a slope, and we're starting to craft something that looks a little bit more man-made, okay? The biggest challenge that we have is generating 3D models that look computer-made, okay? It's really, really easy to make something that looks like it was made by a computer. Human beings are organic objects, okay? We follow, kind of the rules of nature whenever we create anything, and everything in our world is created by us. So we infuse a little bit of nature in the elements that we craft, okay? Starting to sound like an industrial designer, so I'll take a step back and turn to 3D modeling. Okay.
One thing that comes to mind versus real life versus computers is it seems like everything in real life is more circular and less square.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Planets, molecules, all that.
One of the other things that I've noticed and I've learned over my experience is that whenever we have a massive shift in the angle of our polygons, we need to infuse a small transition. If you look at our real world, everything has a radius. We don't have the manufacturing capability to make a perfect 90-degree corner. There's always going to be some small transition between those two surfaces. Even if it's imperceptible, it's there, okay? No, we're not necessarily going to do an edge loop. But I'm going to use a little edge bevel. I want to ensure that my edge shape is set to round, and my round level is set to 0. And I do this a lot whenever I'm designing something. I'll just add small little plane changes in there. And just take a look and see how that small plane change has influenced the entire surface. Now, I'm not too enthralled with it. Yeah, I'm just doing some edge beveling in here. I'm just looking at the model first. I'm trying to create a good shape initially, and then we can go on and make it look even perfect with the subdivision surfaces. All I did is I selected the edge loop and I beveled it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly what I did. That's exactly what I did. Now, we have a couple issues here. This is the computer telling us that we have some problems. So let's hit the undo key a couple times. Let's get it back to a point where things are happy. Now let's drop our tool and drop the selection. I wanna show you a magic tool. If you look real carefully, and the color of your material is kind of influencing this, there's some dark edges right down here at the bottom of your shape. Run a mesh cleanup. Yeah, keep going. Do it one more time. Basically want to do it until it says no elements to fix. There we go. Now try grabbing that bottom one and moving it up. Great. Try beveling it. Okay, what are we doing here? You didn't left click. There we go. Good. All right. Yeah, what's up? What would happen if you hit the blue one as is, right now? Okay, let's do a shift click then. Okay, now grab the blue one. You can let go of the shift key, by the way. There you go. Now do the blue one, and then you can also grab the red one. Yeah, pull it, pull, go, 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 keep going. Yeah, see how you're making the bowl now? There you go. All right. These small little transitions go a long way to establishing a more pleasant design, one that looks a little bit more grounded in our reality. I'm going to do the exact same thing up here. Shoot, maybe I'll make it a feature. I can make it a little bit bigger, change my overall design aesthetic a little bit, and work with that. I also want to take a look at the edge. Now let's pretend that this is an actual object. I'm at a party, I pick up this Martini glass, I take a delicious, delicious sip from my non-alcoholic beverage, okay? And what happens? If this was the actual model, the actual glass, I would cut my lip, right? That's a pretty sharp edge there, okay? It's razor sharp. I don't want the person drinking from this glass to be injured. So a small edge bevel with a round level of 0 will help soften that edge a little bit and change the plane. Just edge beveling, man. Just edge beveling. Yeah, that's good. I'm coming.
That is the only option that shows up when I try to bevel the edge.
Okay. Did you click on the blue handle? Ah.
What did I do?
Go the other way.
Okay. Oh,
There we
that is the
go.
opposite. Oh, is that not the opposite of what I want?
It's exactly what you want.
Okay. So
Now there's a limit, so we can't have.
I just want to do it like a little bit.
I would go a little bit more than that.
Like that?
Yeah, I think somewhere around there. I'd still go a little bit further, but that you were in the ballpark. April, you good?
Well, just if being stupid, pull it, but it gives me a weird shape.
Aha. Okay. You're in the Vertex series of tabs or series of tools, and you're using Vertex bevel. You want basic, and then that's the bevel tool you want to use. Welcome. All right. So I'm real happy with the overall shape of my Martini glass. Okay. Albeit it's a little polygonal, right? We can definitely see all the faceted edges that my low-resolution 8-sided cylinder has crafted, right? So this is probably the moment where I want to hit that little tab key. Oh, actually, hold on a second. We forgot something. We forgot the bottom. The bottom. There's an opening in our bottom, just like our coffee cup, right? How do we fill that polygon? You got it. Go into edge mode. Double click on that bottom edge loop and hit the magic keyboard shortcut, which is the P key. It'll make a polygon. And now we're free to use our traditional polygonal beveling tools to create any set of underside that we want. P is going to take the selected component, in our case an edge loop, and fill that selection with the polygon. There we go. And that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. Hit the tab key now. And things are looking good, but things are also looking not so good. I'm happy with how all of those faceted edges going around my Martini glass are being smoothed out. But I'm losing all of that wonderful definition that I just created with those edge bevels that I applied. So I need to go up and add some tension along the subdivision surface algorithm and control where this algorithm is going to be applied within inside of our mesh. So let's start at the base, where the stem goes from the base the platform of our glass vertically down here. Knowing what we know about controlling the sub-D algorithm, what should we look to do down here? add more edges. Specifically, around this edge loop, well, let's start there. How many? 2 more, you got it. We have to have a grand total of 3. I have the original selected, and I'm going to add 2 more. What tools can I use to get that? Let's slice it, man. I think I'm just going to do some loop slicing here. It's a way of getting the result that we're after. Yeah, we don't want the polygonal bevel is not the tool that we want to use in this particular situation. I want to use some loop slicing here. And I'm doing it at a mode of 2, or a count of 2, in a mode of symmetry. And I've just added, a loop down there and a loop down there. And in the step before, I added a loop here. And at the top of the stem, I added one here. With the mode of symmetry, we can work pretty fast to define the edges that we need. And now, check it out. Yeah, I'm liking that. That's pretty neat. That's very neat. Let's do one more. And this time, I just want to add a new edge loop underneath this one right here, because I have one above. Now I need to add one below. So I'm going to change my mode to free in a count of 1 just to add a single loop into the mix. I want to take this as an opportunity to show you guys a neat thing. Hit the tab key and I'm happy with that. It looks cool. That's great.
So should we the thing be around the outside or inside?
Can you be a little bit more specific? The outside of what? Okay. This is a lot of work, isn't it? It's a lot of work. Going in and doing all these loops, right? Ultimately, what we're after here is just an additional edge loop above the original and below the original, okay? Loop slice, in certain situations, is the tool to use. However, the guys down at Luxology are pretty smart. They're hardcore modelers, right? They know what they're doing, so they've given us a beautiful gift. Edge bevel. Edge bevel, or the new addition to the edge bevel tool, allows us to get through this process of creating 2 additional edge loops a whole lot faster. Let me show you. I'm on the outside of my base. I'm going to select that edge loop, and I'm going to fire off edge bevel. However, this time, before I left click and drag, I'm going to change my edge shape from round to square. When I change my edge shape to square, notice that the round level channel becomes grayed out. Because with the square edge shape, it's only going to do one thing. Check it out. Shazams. Okay? What it did is it automatically added one above and one below. It's pretty cool, huh? Let's do it again. Let me drop the tool. Drop my selection. I'm going to do it on the underside of my glass. Select that edge. Hit the B key to fire off bevel. And then with the square edge shape, I can just pull out by left-clicking and dragging 2 new edge loops. One of the great things about edge bevel.
You have to select the whole thing around or just...
Yeah, I gotta do. One of the great things about working with edge bevel is that we can do multiple edge loops simultaneously. Check it out. I can do that one, that one, that one, all at the exact same time. Check it out. Let me fire off edge bevel. And it does all 3 of them separately using the exact same distance. Done. Yes, sir.
When did the bevels give me 4 layers, not just 2, but 4 lines?
Okay. What computer number are you, Nathan? 18. Now, what may be going on here is that you may have duplicate geometry sitting in your scene. Yeah, I see what. Okay, let's hit undo a couple stages. Yeah. Keep going until the, okay, now drop your selection for me. Look critically at that edge. What color is the wireframe on that edge? It's kind of dark. What do dark wireframes represent? Yeah, mesh cleanup, okay? How do we create, or how do we accidentally create duplicate geometry? Quincy? You got it. The moment you fire off any bevel tool, and it doesn't matter if it's vertex, edge, or polygon, the moment you apply the tool to your scene, so when you click in your scene, you've doubled the polygon that's in that spot, okay? If you drop the tool before insetting or shifting it, that new polygon is in the exact same place as the original. Here's the muscle memory that I would like you to continue to work towards creating. When you're using an edge bevel and you need to go back in time or you messed up, don't simply drop the tool. Hit undo, okay? Hit undo. Dropping the tool after you applied it is still going to leave those duplicate pieces of geometry on your mesh, okay? Now, I think there's a question. I still have 20 minutes until your 30-minute timeline. Yes?
I tried beveling, and my Martini glass is looking a little more floral.
It's looking a little bit more what?
Floral.
Floral?
Yes.
Like a flower. Okay, so I don't know what you did, but let's hit undo. Okay, now, okay, let's stop right there. Drop your selection. Hit tab, see what you get. Yeah, okay.
It's been a ways. I've just sort of given
I have no idea. I have no
think
idea. You can leave it as is. That's fine for what we're doing.
the bevel tool, what I was doing was when I used the bevel tool, it didn't make a solid ring. It only selected little bits so that when I shrunk them down, they made little rectangles.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know what you were meaning about use the bevel tool.
I think for what we're doing and what we're striving to accomplish here, Andy, I think we'll just leave it as is and we'll keep moving on, okay? Be very, very, very extraordinarily, doubly, 10,000% careful when using the bevel tool. This is one of those tools that will completely screw up your mesh, okay? If you're not aware of what you're doing with it and what the tool is doing. Unfortunately, this kind of gets filed under only you can prevent forest fires, right? You're the operator of the machine. I've taught you how to use the machine. If you crash the car, that's your problem, not mine, you know? Okay, all right, let's keep going. Because the edge bevel, you know, this new edge bevel command will allow us to work pretty quickly going up to the top here. So I can do all three of these things at the exact same time. Yeah, because with that square edge shape, it's going to add an additional edge loop above and below. Now, Art, what version of Modo are you in? Okay, great. Just want to make sure because this is an 801 feature. All right, I am very, very happy with what I've created here. However, down here at the bottom, it needs a little love down here at the bottom. You can see we're getting this big scoop. Don't want that. So let me just do an additional edge bevel down here. And now I'm happy. Happy, happy, happy. That's a pretty good looking Martini glass. Very pleased with that. Very pleased. All right. So, with that said, let's talk for a moment about oops, excuse me, hit the wrong button. All right. So with that said, let's talk for a moment about how we can create maybe some liquid on the inside. Okay? So I want to be able to have, a drink inside of my martini glass. That'd be kind of fun, right? That'd be cool. Yeah, that'd be neat. So let's talk about what we need to create before we think about what we need to, or what tools we need to use to reach that goal. Okay. What do we need to create? We want liquid on the inside of our glass. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. From a 10,000-yard kind of perspective, we need to have a new piece of geometry that matches the angle of the interior of my martini glass. You got it. Copy and paste, right? There's nothing that says we can't take an existing form, copy that, maybe edit it in some capacity, and move on from there. All right? Now, in this case, before I get started, I'm going to use the power of our item list to help me filter and manage all of this information. As mentioned earlier, a mesh item is really nothing more than a container for edges, vertices, and polygons. Whenever we create any shape, well, it's going to go on a mesh item, right? Well, I want to kind of separate some polygons from my original glass. So I'm going to create a new mesh item, and in every sense, an additional container that I can use as a holding ground for these other polygons. I got 15 minutes before I'm taking a break. Let me manage that. So we're going to create a new mesh item, okay? New mesh item. It's going to be a new container. In every sense, if you come from a traditional two-dimensional background, this is kind of like a new layer over in Photoshop, okay? A place for us to put some additional information and a place for us to control that additional information separately from the original. Let's name this thing. Let's just call this glass. Okay? That's my original one. And now, I'm going to go to the Add Item pull-down menu and choose Mesh to add a new empty mesh object. Now, before we go any further, I've just kind of arbitrarily clicked on the camera to deselect that new mesh item. Look very, very carefully at the label, at the badge, the name of that new mesh item. Is it similar or different from the one immediately above it? Or what's different? It's grayed out, right? It's grayed out. What does this mean? It's empty, okay? And Modo is definitely using this kind of methodology to describe to you that this is an empty mesh item, that it contains, that it doesn't contain any verts, edges, or polys, okay? So let's name this thing real fast. I'm going to click pause for a second and then click again. And I'll just call this liquid. All right. When I'm let me rephrase the way, restructure what I was about to say. Okay, now Modo has a really cool system. It has an active mesh item system and a background mesh item system. It's really easy to understand which one's the active one and which one's in the background, right? The active mesh is the one that's currently selected. So in my case, liquid. That's the active mesh item. If you look very carefully, the background color of that row has been darkened, kind of denoting again that this is the one that we're currently working on.
What's the gold square thing mean?
The gold square thing represents the component mode that you're currently working within. So just by looking at that, I know I'm in my polygon selection set.
Oh.
If I was to change that to verts, edges, or polys, it would change, or even items, it would change. All of the other mesh items that are in our scene that are currently unselected are classified by the Modo item system as in the background, okay? If you look carefully at the way our OpenGL viewport is being drawn, all of the items that are in the background now have a black wireframe. Makes it really easy for us to see the polygons that we're working on. We can change how all of the inactive meshes are drawn. It's a viewport property. If you were to put your cursor in your OpenGL viewport, hit the O key, we have two tabs down here. One that says active meshes, which is going to determine how we draw the active mesh, the foreground mesh object, and then an inactive. What's probably been changed on yours, Carissa, is one of these two top ones. Probably make inactive same as active. And that's fine. You can leave that on. I like to leave it off. That way I always know which mesh object I'm currently working within. All right. So I'm going to go back to my glass, unsubdivide it by hitting Tab, and I'm going to select some polygons. I want to select basically all of these. Yeah, just grab the interior bowl, if you will, of my glass, and I'm going to copy and paste it. I'm going to copy those polygons. I'll go to my liquid mesh item and paste them in. In every sense, what we're making here is geometry that's going to represent our liquid. I don't want my liquid to go all the way to the top of my glass. Okay? So what can I do? I like the way you're thinking there, Krev. However, if I simply move them down, I change the slope of that cone. Scale, same thing. If I scale them, I change the slope. So I can't change the slope, because then it's not going to look like it's on the inside of that glass. Nope. Slice it. You got it. Let's just slice it. I'm going to use loop slice here. Count of 1, a motive free, and then I'm just going to pick where I want my liquid to go. This new edge represents the top of the liquid. That's cool. And then I'm just simply going to delete that top row. There we go. Before we go any further, it's important that we change the direction of all these polygons. If you remember, going back in time, a number of weeks ago, we defined that every single surface inside of our scene has a defined direction. Does anyone know what this thing is called? The normal. You got it, the surface normal. Right now, all of our surface normals, if you will, are pointed towards the inside of our glass, right? I want them facing the outside of my glass so I can see my liquid from the outside, okay? Yeah?
I know you just told us what to do, but I sort of missed what you did to get your mesh from your glass, the selected mesh from your glass to your liquid.
I selected those polygons, and I copied them, and then I pasted them into my liquid mesh item. Yeah. It's one of my favorite features inside of Modo. I wish all 3D modeling applications had a simple copy-paste. It seems obvious, but most 3D apps don't have this. They don't. They don't. It brings to the surface the awesomeness of Modo. Yeah, it's pretty great. Okay. So I'm going to flip my surface normals on this. So all these polygons are facing the outside, or facing to the outside of my mesh. Because if I look at it from over here, I don't see these polygons. They're facing the opposite direction. So if I double-click on my liquid, does anyone remember the keyboard shortcut? Nathan? F. F for flip.
Aren't we going to want to take the outer edges and make polygons there?
Next step. You got it, Dylan. So now we need to make a cap. Because, yeah. Flip reversed the surface normal. And then, like our coffee cup, I'm just going to fill that top with the polygon.
With P, right?
P, you got it.
And this is useful usually for like a liquid, I guess, you would say. So it would be right against the geometry, but it's not part of it.
You got it.
Okay.
What we're trying to create is a liquid that perfectly, or a piece of geometry that perfectly matches the slope of its container.
Okay, because if we were trying to guess,
It'd be impossible. You'd be guessing all day. All right. If I subdivide it, collapses down onto itself. So I'm going to select this topmost edge loop and do a simple edge bevel to get the geometry that I need to ensure that it stays its shape when I hit Tab. And now, if I go to my render, I see nothing. There we go. That's what we have. I'm going to make a ground plane real fast for this guy to sit on. Mm-hmm. Okay, help me out. What can we do to return the modal layouts to its defaults? Restore. We don't need to reset the entire applications just to get the interfaces, layout back to its original orientation. So in the layout menu, choose restore. And then from that tab, just make sure that the name is tabbed and hit OK. Things should go back to what you're expecting to see. You got it. All right, let's take a look. Your computer number 1. Oh, that's fun, isn't it? Okay, go ahead and drop your selection for me. Just click off your mesh to drop that edge loop selection. There you go. Let's hit the tab key. Oh, it was tabbed. Okay. Take me on a tour. Let's orbit around a little bit and see what we can see. Sometimes when we're troubleshooting, we have to be a little bit of a detective. What's the underside of your mesh look like? Yeah. Aha. Okay, I see what's going on. All right. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to select that topmost polygon, the one that was creating that V. And I want you to hit the open braces key, which is the key next to the P key. It's going to invert your selection. Hit F. There we go. Now we've flipped the normals of all of those polygons. However, I believe we have 2 polygons on the cap in the exact same position. So you may want to run a mesh cleanup. And that will probably resolve your issue. All right. Quincy. Hit the P key. Select that, the open edge. Hit the P key. Yeah, Andy, what's up?
So are we going to get into see-through liquid?
Absolutely. And that is going to come after the much-needed break. Let's take a break. Okay, let's do it.
Are we done with the cup?
We're done. We're done with the modeling. Now we are in material world, okay? And I just wanted to show you guys how to make transparent materials. It's pretty easy. It's pretty easy, and a lot of you guys want to make transparent materials, and that's a lot of fun. We should make transparent materials because a lot of things in our world are transparent. Like everything in our 3D modeling pipeline, we have to create custom materials to control those polygons separately from the base material. So I'm going to go to my glass mesh item and select those polygons, hit M, call this new material group glass. Same with my liquid, I'll go in there, hit M, create a new material group called liquid, and now I'm going to start shading, okay? I am in full-blown material setup mode now. Let's start with the glass material, and I like just to test to see if everything's working. Yep, I've changed the diffuse color value, and I'm controlling those polygons separately from the rest. To create transparent materials, we have to go to a new part of the material. We've been focusing exclusively on the material reference tab, which has values like diffuse color, specular amount, reflection amount, the kind of the all-stars of the material world, right? However, we have a second tab that's immediately below it there on the right called material trans, which stands for transmissive, okay? In here, we can do a number of different things, including establish transparency. We can also do some really neat things called subsurface scattering, which will allow us to create porous materials that simulate kind of like skin or like wax. And then finally, down at the bottom, we can make our materials luminous and act as light sources within our scene. More on that in the future weeks. This is actually going to play an important role for us in about 3 weeks. But I want to focus y'all's attention on transparent amount. Let's go ahead and just put this at 90%. And, look at that. All right, rock and roll. Okay, and now my little glass is becoming a little bit more see-through. Transparent amount. And let's give it some color. I want to make my glass kind of blue. And now we're making it more see-through. Really doesn't look like glass, though, right? Like, not even a little bit. Let me turn my directional light on. Like, really doesn't look like glass. What we're beginning to influence is how light rays penetrate through an object. At the core of the Modo rendering system is a physically based engine that understands how light rays interact with different surfaces out here in the real world. When light goes through a transparent object, like a piece of glass, what does it do? Does anyone know the actual technical term of what it does on the interior of the glass? It refracts, right? The light rays change their direction. We want to be able to control that refractive index. We want to be able to go in and control how those light rays bend. Now, luckily for us out here in the real world, light is a very measurable element. A lot of fancy machinery and a lot of big thinking smart guys and gals around the world who spend a lot of their time trying to figure out precisely how light operates. And one of the things that they've established is a refractive index. This is a physically based, scientifically created value that defines how light rays are going to refract on the inside of an object. The guys down at Luxology are giving us access to this scientific value. They've even done us a really nice solid. If you notice on this channel, there's a little pull-down menu right there, that little downward arrow. And they've given us some defaults, okay, some parameters that we can use as a starting point for our exploration. Oops. Okay, I'm just going to choose, I don't know. Let's choose, what are we going to choose here? Crystal. We can do crystal. Flint glass. Let's do crystal. See what we get. The moment we change the refractive index, we begin to craft, or we begin to take one step closer to that final result. Still not there yet. Still have a long ways to go. Question? You just click on the arrow. Yeah, there's a little arrow, a little downward arrow. Just click on it. At this stage, I want to increase my transparency value to 100%. And now we're getting closer to what glass looks like. Okay? Before we go any further, it's really, really important to note that going from this step on, it is scene dependent. Okay? The size of your glass is going to determine the application of the next value that we insert into our absorption distance field. Okay? Let me show you a good kind of barometer as to how large your objects are. I'm going to close this window. And if you look very carefully down here in my OpenGL viewport, you can see my grid. Right now, each one of these grid squares has a defined size, okay? Which helps us figure out how tall our glass is. The value that determines, or the way that the interface tells us that defined size, is this number right here, 100 millimeters. Okay? That's how big each one of these grid squares are. Okay? So I have a pretty big glass, actually. This is a humongous glass. This is like a glass that's like up to here. It's like a 3-foot glass. Okay? It's pretty big.
Mine says 2, is M is meters?
Like I said, M is meters.
So
You got it.
6 feet?
Yeah, I know. So it's all scene specific now on your local machine. What we need to do to increase the quality of our glass is twofold. I'm going to go back over to my Material Trans tab. And the second thing that we need to change is the absorption distance. This determines how far that light ray is going to penetrate through the surface of our object before it is refracted back out into the scene. I hate to say it, and this drives me crazy, but you're going to have to monkey around with this number and figure out visually what works for you and for your scene, okay? I'm just going to use, as a starting point, let's do 100 millimeters. And I have no idea if that's going to work. Yeah, check it out. We're getting a much different result now. Okay, there it is at 0. Absorption distance. What I like to recommend to people is just go to these double arrows over here. And as a subtle little reminder, these arrows are sliders. If you left-click on those arrows and drag left and right, you can interactively change the value in that channel. And I'm just going to increase this. And you can see the values are changing in front of me. You're going to get to a point. The absorption distance is how far the light ray is going to go through your object before it is refracted back out into your scene. You'll get to a point where this is going to go almost transparent. Yeah. Now my transparent color is blue, which is tinting it this lovely kind of teal. Awesome. So you can have a lot of fun with this. If I put this back to white, yeah, there we go. Now my floor is also as white, which is having a direct influence on the readability of my glass. So let me just simply create a material group for my floor, and I'll insert a texture in here real fast. And you can just change the color if you'd like. I'm a little bit more anal retentive. Okay, let's do this. There we go. So if you go back to the assignment that we did a couple weeks ago about the markers, doing the exact same thing that we did for that assignment, right? I changed the projection type for that image to solid along the Y. I could even use planar. One of those two will work. And I'm projecting it down the Y-axis, and I'm simply changing the scale values associated with that texture locator. All right. Yeah. Now we're getting there. Transparent materials are tricky, because they are absolutely, and I mean 100% dependent upon the lighting setup and the environment that it is existing within. Oftentimes people go, this looks nothing like glass. And I go, you're right, in your situation, it's going to reflect and refract gray in your default gray environment, right? And that's not going to look real at all. One other thing that we need to change is that we need to give it a little bit of reflectivity. We've changed the transparency values of it. But if we go back to our glass material, let's give it a little bit of reflection amount. Let's put this to like 3%. And I often do like 80% Fresnel as a starting point. Yeah, there we go. And now, with that reflectivity value added, I'm crafting something that is behaving a little bit more realistically. Cool. Not bad. So reflections, we have to make it reflective because glass is reflective. And then I gave it a good healthy dose of Fresnel to make it more reflective on the edges than it is on the interior of the shape. Now, question? 80%. And that's kind of my starting value. That's my go-to value. And then I kind of dial it in to taste after that. Yes? Bummer. Okay. What computer are you? Uh-huh. Okay, let's go back in time a couple steps here and hit undo. Okay. Select the material that's driving your table. Do me a favor, put your cursor inside the preview window and right-click on the table. Right now, your table is being controlled by the base material. You gotta select the polygon that represents your table. And do that. There we go. Now we're controlling the shading of that polygon separately from the base material. Let's find out. No, it doesn't. It breaks it. Here's what I would do. I would delete that material. Did you rename that material at any stage? Yeah. Or even the group? Yeah. Okay. I would delete it. Delete that entire structure. No. Delete the material group table. Yep. All right. Now, I'd reapply, or I'd reassign a material to that polygon and give it a new name, not table. Perfect. Great. There we go. Now it seems to be working the way we want it to work. I think the wires got crossed. Something is breaking in here, and I'm not 100% sure what. Not necessarily. Let's go back in time. Okay, let's figure it out. Now, can you go to your base material for me? Yeah. Can you go to the Material Trans tab? Okay. Let's turn off red 2, liquid, glass, and in your shader tree. Interesting. Delete glass frosted. That entire thing. That may have been your issue. No, 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 no. Delete it. When I say delete, I mean delete, not move. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Well, I'm going to let you continue to troubleshoot your problems on your own, okay? Because we have additional content that we need to get through tonight. Now, for the interior of our glass, we're going to do the exact same thing, okay? Transparent materials are transparent materials. I'm getting a result that's looking pretty great. I'm very happy with mine.
How do I make mine clear like yours?
Did you change the transparent amount in the material reference tab? Yep. Yep, it's 100% transparent. Now, is it transparent? No. Or are we getting a weird reflection? You didn't change the refractive index. That's step one.
Oh.
Yeah, and you got to change the absorption distance.
Found it. Got it.
Great.
Thanks.
Okay, so the liquid for our Martini glass is going to follow the exact same suit as the glass itself. Okay, I'm going to go through the exact same process. Okay, I'm going to go to material trans, increase the transparency value to 100%. Okay, I'll give it a little bit of a refractive index. Maybe I'll do water, and let's make it something other than, let's make it funky blue. Hold on a second. Let's make sure I'm not controlling that area. So I think the problem that Krev was having with her liquid is a little bit more, is larger than her, because I've just run into the exact same situation where my material is disconnected all of a sudden from the polygon that I assigned it to. So this is a bug. Okay. Here's how I'm going to work with this bug. I'm going to delete it. That's interesting to me. Let's go back to the render environment. And now all of those values, yeah, this is a bug. This is one of those moments where, okay. You got to delete it, get rid of it, and then the new material that you create, have it be something physically different. Name it something new. Like I'm going to call this, I don't know, brown sugar. So I want mine to look like Coca-Cola. Interesting. Now that is fascinating. And okay. Yeah, this is a bug. At this stage of the game, I would save my scene. Okay. I would reset Moto. Yeah, no, this is my computer. I just ran into the exact same bug, and I'm going to file this bug the moment we're done with class today. Because this is rather odd. Now we're back, okay? Here's my brown sugar. It's no longer negatively affecting my scene. I probably can control it independently from the rest. I can. Mission accomplished. Okay, now we can go back in. Cool. Let's give it a refractive index, water, change the absorption distance some. Let's make it something other than white. Let's make it like green. There we go. It's an Appletini. Cool, huh? Nope, I'm making it all on my own, man. Yeah. So happy that I have videos for all you guys. You're welcome.
Sorry, it's space.
Transparent materials. Transparent materials. That's how we do it. Okay. As a reminder, they're incredibly, and I mean incredibly, scene specific. The part that people run into, and the problem that people run into, is this absorption distance. Okay. Because depending on how big your scene is, that's going to drive this value. Okay. If you want your object to look a little bit more smoky, like lower this value. Okay. Now, if I keep on with this absorption distance, maybe I can make something that looks a little different. Yeah, it's not nearly as transparent now. Or maybe I think in the past really cranked this value. I'm not getting what I want in this particular situation, but not kilometers. Let's do 100 millimeters again. Yeah. Huh? I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah, I'm just messing around with the color, trying to get the color what I want it to be. Because it's reflective. It's reflecting our environment right now. Yeah. And I reduce the transparency too. If I put this up to 100, there we go. That looks pretty good. There's my brown sugar. Caffeine free, of course, and non-alcoholic. Yeah, and that's another thing to be kind of cognizant of as you go through this, is that when you're working with glass, transparent, reflective, and refractive materials, the environment that it's sitting within is going to have a direct influence on the quality of the result that you get.
Got a modeling question.
Yeah.
Notice around the rim of your glass, I can see you polygon.
Yeah.
So should we kind of make this perfect, go back and
You can, and this is kind of the power of the subdivision surface engine. We can start with a lower quality polygonal object. I think my initial shape was an 8-sided cylinder. I don't necessarily have to go back in and remodel this. This wasn't necessarily something I was going to talk about today, but I can show you where to increase the subdivision rate. Now, I don't want you guys to do this because this is one of those things that could break your render time pretty quickly. But you can change it. Like, for example, if I go to my glass layer, on the mesh element itself, we have an entire category of settings here that drives the subdivision, in our case, the level. If I change this to like 4 and 4, now it's perfect. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's probably going to take forever to render. Or not. Modo often surprises me. Let's see, here we go. 9.7 seconds. If I return it to, it's 720 by 480, so it's relatively low res. And then at a lower subdivision rate, it's a little bit faster. In this particular situation, it's, it's a second difference. In more complex scenes, you got it. Yeah. You got it. Right. I only have, this is a relatively simple scene that's got a grand total of maybe 100 polygons in it. Maybe 200 polygons in it. If I was to render my boat, for example, at a higher subdivision setting, a higher subdivision level, it would take exponentially longer to render. Per frame, yeah, and that's the thing you got to remember. This is per frame, per frame.
How long would your ship probably take if you had everything visible and on the regular subdivision you have?
It's not that bad, actually. And this is going to seem weird, but it's about 2 minutes a frame. That's without any textures, though, and that's without any really, really intense materials that are going to define, a more accurate surface. It's just kind of a modeling of material. That's all it really is at the moment. So once I have it all textured and kind of dialed in with displacements and reflections and transparency on certain things, it's going to go up pretty quickly. It's probably going to be close to 20 or 25 minutes a frame. All right. Are you guys beginning to see the power of subdivision surfaces? Pretty neat. Pretty neat. They are the bee's knees in every sense. I'm really, 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 really happy that Modo has a very strong implementation of a subdivision surface engine. This is the future. I shouldn't even say it's the future because it is now, right? This is what the guys down at Pixar and Industrial Light and Magic are doing to generate all their awesome visuals. I want to show you an additional tool tonight that will help you guys with the creation of your little medicine bottle. You can use your standard practice. It's fine. You can use your the box modeling technique that we've been going over the last couple weeks. If we go into our lab assignment, we're making a little medicine bottle, and I've given you a profile. So this is what we're striving to create: transparency on we're trying to make it look like an actual bottle. But I've given you a profile. This is like a cross section, if you will, of the actual shape itself. And it's just a little targa file. I want to import. It's an image file, like a PNG or a JPEG.
Oh, so that's like a reference sheet.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to load this profile as a backdrop image. There it is. And there it is. The blue line represents the cross-section of a little medicine bottle. Here's an alternative that's really kind of attractive for cylindrical objects, okay? Instead of trying to model the entire bottle, what if we just model the profile of it, a cross-section, and then use that cross-section as the genesis of what's called a radial sweep. Pretty neat. I use it a lot. They're pretty fun. Let me show you how they work. We're going to use this little backdrop item here in tandem with the pen tool. Before we get started, let me just decrease the transparency of my backdrop item. There we go. And I also want to position this backdrop item in relationship to the location of the center of the x-axis. So in layman's terms, I want that little green line and those little red dots on the positive side of the x-axis. Give me 2 seconds. Okay. There we go. Mission accomplished. Now, your job, or if you would like to do it this way, and I would recommend that you give it a try, just to have a little bit of exposure to a new technique, is to trace the blue lines with the pen tool. I like the pen tool. The pen tool inside of Enmodo works nothing like the pen tool inside of Photoshop. Okay? It works nothing like the pen tool in Illustrator, Photoshop, or After Effects. Okay? It is not a Bezier vector path creation tool. The pen tool inside of Modo is found right here. This is it. It's great. What we're going to effectively be able to do with the pen tool is to define a custom polygon shape. Wherever I left click, I'll add a vert on my custom shape. Okay? Pretty cool. While the tool is still on and active and live, I can go in and grab these control vertices and move them around. Pretty cool. And then when I'm done, drop the tool by tapping the space bar, and now I have a polygon. Technically, it is n-gon. N-gons are bad because most rendering engines don't know how to render them. Most rendering engines, at their core kind of mathematic level, only understand surfaces that are made from 3 vertices or 4 vertices. A surface that has more than 4, it goes, I don't know what to do, and it crashes. Or it just doesn't render it. If I was to bring in an object into like Unity that has an n-gon, which is our game engine, it would just show up as invisible because Unity goes, I don't know what to do with this, so I'm just not going to draw it. Okay. One thing to note, or actually 2 things to note about working with the pen tool. We're working in an open lab. All of my classes at some point and in some degree use the pen tool. So you guys need to ensure that the pen tool is working the way it needs to work. Okay? There are a lot of features of the pen tool. It's an awesome, flexible, highly useful tool. We need to ensure that the type of shape that we're creating is a polygon. If we go into this pull-down menu, you can see there's a lot of stuff that we can create. We want a polygon. In addition, we need to make sure that the wall mode is off. We'll talk about the wall mode in about 3 weeks when we start building a house. Okay? With the pen tool active, I'm just going to start tracing my shape. And I've given you these little red dots here as kind of a starting point. I'm just going to trace this shape. It's going to look pretty funky initially. But just trust the system.
Why are you using this?
See how cross is there? At this point, most people go, it's not working, it's broken. No, just keep going, okay? You're getting this really weird cross because this new vert is on the opposite side of the one that you just created. If you look 8 or 9 steps ahead, we'll go back. Okay? Now, when you get on the inside, here's my recommendation. Put a vert over there, and then kind of walk it in. Oops. There we go. Now, I probably should have overlay turned on as well, so I can see through my object. And there we go. That helps. And keep going. Just trust it. Trust it. Trust me. It will parameterize correctly. Now, if you get close to an existing, sometimes it tries to merge it. So start off over here and then walk it in. That helps. And then finally, we need another vert over there. There we go. Now I've created a cross section, a profile blade, if you will, of this shape. There's two things that we need to do with this element before we can move on. Since we're going to be sweeping this little cross section 360 degrees around the origin, it's imperative that these two verts, the one down by the green guy, down by the green line, are centered around the x-axis. With my vertex tab, or my vertex tools, set position, I'm just going to have a value of 0 along the x-axis. And then if you notice down below, boink, those are perfectly centered at the middle of the x-axis, which is what I want. Let's look at the scene from perspective. I want to turn off my backdrop item. The other thing that we need to do is select the entire n-gon and just do the exact same thing, set position, but I need all of my verts to be centered around the z-axis. Sometimes they're offset like this when you create it with the pen tool. I need that entire shape to be on this dark line. So set position, 0 along the z, and we're ready to go. No?
No, you have the video on D2L,
Yeah.
right? Oh, okay. There's a video on D2L.
There's a video on D2L. It's also being live streamed. And you're also listening to it live, too. How about that? Pretty cool, huh? Thank you. Yes. I agree. I agree. Okay, let's do the actual radial sweep too, okay? Because this is all just set up for the actual duplication. If I select my geometry, the radial sweep command can be found under the duplicate collection of tools. Now, we haven't spent much time in here. We've just looked at mirror, but the first one up here is called radial sweep. It works in theory very similarly to mirror, but we're not going to be making one copy of this object. We're going to be making a bunch of them. It's going to be making them in a circle. Since we want everything to be swept around the origin, I'm going to turn my action center to origin to get the result that I'm after. And now I simply just click, and I have my bottle. So what's happened here is taken that one profile that I created. Have you guys ever seen...
That's awesome.
Oh, what are they? Those little paper decorations they get like the dollar store. That's like it's the profile of a bell, the accordion ones, and it pulls around. That's kind of fundamentally what we're doing here. Okay, but we're doing it with polygons. Yeah, give it a try. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It is. Some people, the bevel tool works really well because, yeah, some people like this because they can see the profile, they see the shape. And then they're going to turn it into a 360-degree, sweep operation after that. At the conclusion of this, after you drop the tool, you have polygons that behave just like any other polygons. Okay.
You want two bottles, right? So we could just double-click, copy, and paste, right?
If you want to create a render that matches this,
That's what I meant,
yeah. Here's some examples of some successful student projects in the past. Use these as a guide to help you. Yes. Yeah. So at the conclusion of this, you get polygons like any other polygonal shape, and you can continue to edit this polygonal shape like any other polygonal shape. How we get there, just a little bit different. A little bit different. Pretty cool, huh? One thing that I've noticed as people kind of go through this, some landmines that people often step on. If this profile is not centered along the z-axis, if it's over there, and if you run your sweep, this is what you're going to get. Action center set to origin. You're going to get a hole, and you're going to get this little tornado effect with your edges down there at the bottom. That's an instant indication that the original profile is offset from the origin of your scene. Yeah, good stuff, huh? This is how you do like airplane engines, by the way. Huh? Yeah, if this is the what you're going for. Cool. Good times. Oh, one other thing that I've noticed. So let me just recenter this element. Set position, a value of 0 on the z. If these two border verts, the one over by the green line, are not centered along the x-axis, like that, what would you imagine we're going to get? A hole. So if you have a hole in your sweep, you need to reevaluate the location of the overall profile and then those two border verts. Duplicate, radial sweep, get a hole in the center, those two border verts weren't where they need to be. Now, in some cases, in some situations, you don't have to go back to formula. You don't have to go back in and completely redo everything, right? Because at the conclusion of this, you get polygons, like any other shape. How could I fix this mistake? You got it. I can even select that. Oops. Let's see. Select that loop, delete it, and then fill it with a polygon on both sides. Done. That works too. A lot of ways. Say again? Give it a try. Give it a try. I think with the cannon, you'll probably have a little bit more of a challenge sweeping the cannon. Yeah, I would, and the challenge that you're going to run into is just if you look at the reference images that I've given you, the cannon barrel is at an angle. If you wanted to rotate that reference image so that the cannon was, then you can create the profile and sweep it pretty quickly.
There's no way to like cut and paste out of Illustrator right into this.
There is actually. There is. And as a foreshadowing of things to come, you can take Illustrator files and bring them right in natively, which is fantastic, actually. This is one of the few applications that allow you to do that. However, and I hesitate to show this to you, but since you brought it up, hidden inside the pen tool are actually some other very important tools that we'll talk about in detail in the upcoming weeks. One of which is a curve tool, termite curves, and then here's the Bezier curve tool that we're used to seeing over in Photoshop and Illustrator. Yeah. All right.
But now, does that Bezier curve operate the same way as the pen tool? In other words, you end up with a polygon?
No. Yeah. What you get is a unique element within inside the Modo system. Curves are special. They're a special item that's tagged as a curve, and then we'll have to basically you'll have to extrude that curve to create polygons.
Oh, okay.
It's a whole other workflow. Whole other workflow that we won't talk about tonight. But it's there. It's there. I happen to really like working with curves. It's a great way to get really consistent shapes and organic forms quickly in 2 dimensions, then we can extrude into 3. Anyways, okay. Let's kind of visit the expectations of both the homework and the lab this week, okay? The medicine bottle you should be able to bang out pretty quickly. It takes everything that we've talked about and everything that we've worked with and learned during our class today and puts it into a nice, small little project. This is a good 30, maybe 40-minute project that you can bang out quickly, okay? A couple things that I want to remind you guys about. Here's the profile right there. Please make sure that you're applying materials to everything, okay? So I need a bottle, I need a cap, and I need a tabletop for this assignment, okay? Your bottle needs to be sitting on something, and you'll need to create materials for all 3 of those elements, okay? Take some inspiration from some of the past rendering assignments that we've done. You guys are doing a really great job. Continue to flex that muscle, okay? When you're finished, I'll need 2 things. Of course, your Luxology project file and your JPEG. And use these as a reference as to what direction we're headed in. These are good projects that have been completed in the past. Now, your homework this week, a little bit different. Homework is much, much larger in scope, as homework will always be, okay? You're going to be making a cannon, this cannon, okay? I've supplied you with 3 backdrop items that you can use in Modo as a tracing guide for your object. So this piggybacks on the backdrop item system that we created for our Jeep, the backdrop item system that we created for our Beetle, okay, the backdrop item system that we used for our coffee cup. The import procedure and the alignment is identical to the Jeep and to the Beetle, okay? You can find all three of those reference images below. When it comes to modeling, pay really close attention to the location of all of your edge loops. Geometrically, you can see that there's some bands and there's some profile details that will need some edge loops to create those nice, smooth, and sharp transitions, okay? If you can see it in the reference, and FYI, here are the reference images. If you can see it in the reference, try to model it. There's a lot of extra other things in there, like little bolts for the wheels and rings and pivot points. These extra details will help create the realism of this object and suspend disbelief. This is a symmetrical object. The base of this is symmetrical. So, continue to practice those mirroring skills that we were focusing on with the Jeep, okay? We only have to model half the base, and then we can mirror that to the other side of the x-axis. Life is good. This should be a fun one. This should be a fun one. This won't be as much of a backbreaker as the Jeep. This is something that you can easily knock out of the park in the next week. Questions?
And then this also subdivided entirely?
Yep. Mm-hmm. You got it. Yes, ma'am. No, and if you look at the assignment sheet for that project, I encouraged you to go as far as your skill was going to take you, okay? For some folks that have a lot of experience, they're going to model the shovel and the axe and the steering wheel and the gear shift and the pedals, and they're going to go really far. For other folks that don't have as much skill and as experience, the overall shape is really what's most important. So I kind of take it on a per student basis. For a project like that, it's impossible for me to get everyone under the same umbrella. I'm looking for your best work at that moment in time. Yeah. You got it. You got it. And I hope that you take a lot of the projects in here and continue to refine them as your skill gets greater. I know I do. I go back to a lot of my early projects and I go, I can do this better now, right? I get better at my skill too, and I look at things a little bit differently now than I did 10 or 15 years ago. And I have some really good projects that are sitting on my computer that I've up-res and I've added more detail on and I've kind of plussed them to a certain degree. So I hope that you do that. I hope that you do that. Other questions? No, everyone's good? Everyone's confident and sure of what we're trying to accomplish over the next 7 days? All right. I'll see you guys next week.
Netting.
Netting.